I'm Olivia, 32 years old, and for the past 10 years, I planned every single Christmas trip for my massive family, booked the resorts, paid up front, organized every detail. This year, I spent $15,500 on a mountain getaway they all begged for. But on Christmas morning, I woke up alone. They'd left without me. No texts, no calls, just silence. At first, I thought it was a mistake, until I found their secret group chat. He's really not here. Our plan worked. That's when I realized. They meant to leave me behind. Before I tell you exactly how I responded and why the entire trip ended in chaos, drop a comment with where you're watching from. And if this story hits close to home, give it a like and follow for the full truth about how I took back my power. Growing up as a Hayes meant solitude was a luxury you couldn't afford, even if you begged for it. My parents, Carol and David, had 3 of us. Sophia, the eldest and obvious favorite. Me, stuck in the forgettable middle, and Leo, the youngest, born with a silver spoon and an endless supply of charm. And the rest? Aunts, uncles, cousins. They hovered around like we were running a family inn. You'd think they paid rent with how often they showed up. Being the middle child was as cliché as it gets. Sophia was the overachieving star, valedictorian, flawless, couldn't do a thing wrong. Leo, the pampered darling who got away with everything. And me, I was the background music to their spotlight moments, the dependable one. The one who remembered everyone's birthdays and played referee during those classic family spats. For the past decade, our Christmas trips had become something of a chaotic institution. What started as a quiet family escape had ballooned into a full-blown family reunion on the move. Guess who handled all the behind-the-scenes magic? Need a destination scouted? Olivia can do that, looking to book cabins or plan meals around everyone's picky appetites and prescription needs. Just give it to Olivia, she remembers everything anyway. I was the silent engine that kept the holiday cheer running, and no one really noticed. But truthfully, I loved those moments, even when they blurred past me. Last Christmas in the Adirondacks, we rented cabins side by side, and for once, I felt like more than just the family concierge. Aunt Clara and I baked cookies for hours, laughing like old friends, while Uncle George entertained the kids with card games. Mom even praised my Christmas tree decorating, a rare treat, and Dad asked for my thoughts on his retirement. Just for that night, I wasn't invisible. I mattered. But like tides reshaping the shoreline, family dynamics never stay still. And over the last 6 months, the landscape changed drastically. Sophia got engaged to Alex, a financial analyst with deep pockets and deeper family connections. Their engagement party was practically a gala. Mom wept like Sophia had just won a Nobel, while Dad paraded around bragging about his perfect little prodigy. Then came Leo's acceptance to Stanford. Suddenly, we were all part of the Stanford family. Mom and Dad wore cardinal red gear like it was a religion, already planning for his graduation before he'd even packed a bag. Meanwhile, when I shared that I'd been promoted to senior account manager at the firm I'd given 5 years of my life to, all I got from Mom was a lukewarm, "Oh, that's nice." Dad only perked up to ask if it came with a raise, and when I explained it would after my 6-month review, he looked like I'd handed him bad stock tips. The wider family wasn't any different. New names, new loyalties. Cousin Emily's husband Mark instantly became Uncle Greg's new favorite fishing partner. Aunt Diane introduced us to Mike, her latest boyfriend, and wouldn't you know it, he and Dad were soon bonding over vintage cars like old war buddies. Everyone was forming pairs, forging new connections, building fresh little circles. And me? Still the default problem solver, the one everyone calls when they forget a password or need last-minute help planning a birthday. Always included, rarely valued. Useful, but never central. Still, despite all that, I was genuinely excited for this year's Christmas trip. I had a promotion to celebrate, a little money saved, and a hopeful heart that maybe, just maybe, someone would finally see me. The destination was my idea. Timberline Peaks Resort in the Montana mountains. Picture-perfect cabins, a charming main lodge, ski trails, a skating rink, and a top-rated restaurant for Christmas dinner. I found it, booked it, and like always, charged the full $15,500 to my credit card, with cheery promises from everyone. "We'll pay you back at Christmas." It had become tradition. We'd held 3 planning calls. I put together a polished presentation with activity options, meal plans, and even travel routes. Everyone loved the snowmobiling and sledding ideas. We decided to drive. 4 cars, 20 hours on the road, each vehicle strategically arranged to minimize bickering. Of course, I handled all the logistics, packing checklists customized per person, activity bookings, coordinating the gift exchange, even curating card games and playlists for the trip. The entire reservation sat under my name. I had one goal: make this our best Christmas yet. And for once, I hoped that would be enough. Looking back now, I can admit the signs were there, clear as day. I just didn't want to face what they meant. Conversations would quiet the moment I entered a room. Texts about trip plans went unanswered for days. Smaller get-togethers came and went without so much as a mention to me. 2 weeks before the trip, I overheard Mom and Sophia whispering in the kitchen. When I stepped in, Sophia fumbled to change the topic to Christmas cookies. I asked what they'd been discussing. Mom just smiled with that syrupy tone and said, "Oh, just some Christmas surprises. Nothing you need to worry about." Then, a few days later, she casually asked if she could use my credit card just in case for the trip. Her reason? In case we need to make changes to the reservation. Even though the entire booking was already under my name and card. It made no sense, but like always, I let it slide. The night before we were set to leave, everyone was supposed to be packed and ready by 7 a.m. I stayed up late, nearly 2 in the morning, double-checking gift tags, wrapping last-minute packages, and smoothing over every tiny detail to make sure things went off without a hitch. I set my alarm for 5:30, planning to get a quick shower and help with the cars. But when I opened my eyes, sunlight was already pouring through my windows. Not the soft glow of dawn, it was full-blown morning. I panicked and grabbed my phone. 9:15. My heart dropped into my stomach. How had I overslept? I leapt out of bed, shouting apologies into the hallway as I ran toward it. But the house was still, not the warm kind of quiet, not the kind that comes before a busy day. No, this was the stillness of something already over. "Mom? Dad?" I called louder, my voice bouncing back off empty walls. I checked every room. My parents' bed was neatly made, their suitcases gone. Sophia's room was spotless, not a strand of hair out of place. Even Leo's disaster zone had cleared just enough to show his backpack and gaming console had vanished. The tighter my chest got, the more I knew. They were gone. I raced downstairs, hoping maybe someone had stayed behind, or at least left a note, but the kitchen told another story. The Christmas lights still blinked above the counter like some cruel joke. Dishes sat in the sink, crusted with breakfast I hadn't been invited to. They'd eaten together, talked, laughed, left, and didn't wake me. I threw open the front door, barefoot and shaking. The driveway was empty, all 4 cars, gone. Just my Honda left behind like an afterthought. I stood there on the cold porch, breath fogging in the December air, trying to accept what I already knew. They'd left, all of them, without me. Back inside, I grabbed my phone, desperate for some explanation. Maybe I'd missed something, a message, a call, anything. But there was nothing, no texts, no missed calls. No one had even checked to see if I was okay. I dialed my mom's number. It rang, once, twice, 4 times. Then she answered, bright as ever. "Olivia, good morning, sweetheart. Just getting up?" Behind her, I could hear it all. Christmas music, chatter, laughter. They were already hours down the road. Like it was just another holiday, like I hadn't been left behind. "You left without me," I said softly, my voice barely audible even to myself. There was a pause on the other end. "Wait, what? No, honey. Aren't you in the van with your cousins?" Her voice had that artificial brightness that made my skin crawl. I swallowed hard. "No, Mom. I'm at the house, alone. I overslept. And everyone left without me." A longer silence followed. I could hear her muffled voice, clearly turned away from the phone as she spoke to someone. Probably Dad. When she came back, her tone had shifted. It was softer, touched with concern, but it felt rehearsed. Like she was trying on a feeling she didn't quite believe. "Oh, Olivia. There must have been some kind of mix-up. We all thought you were riding with Emily and the cousins. I'm really sorry, sweetheart. From the background, Dad's voice chimed in, low but audible. Just tell her we'll figure it out. Did anyone even check? I asked, struggling to keep my voice from cracking. Did anyone bother to look for me before you left? There was a sigh, impatient. Like I was the one making things difficult. It was hectic, Liv. You know how mornings are when this many people are trying to get on the road. Everyone was running around and I guess we just assumed you were already in one of the vans. You assumed? I repeated, my tone going flat. 17 people in this house, and not one of you noticed I wasn't at breakfast? Not one person saw I wasn't outside loading the cars. Not during the head count I asked us to do before we left. Olivia, she said sharply, don't start. It was a simple mistake, and now you're making it into something bigger than it is. We'll sort it out, okay? Maybe you can grab a flight and meet us. Anyway, reception's getting spotty, so I have to go. I'll call you later. And just like that, the line went dead. The call ended before I could get another word in. I stood there in my pajamas, right in the middle of the kitchen, phone still in hand, staring blankly at the quiet room. They were already hours into the trip before I'd even opened my eyes. They'd really left without me. I tried to stay calm, to think logically. Maybe, just maybe, it really was a mistake. Mornings like that can be chaos. Maybe everyone truly did believe I was riding in one of the other cars. I sat at the table, opened my laptop, and started checking flights to Montana. The prices were brutal. Holiday travel always is. But if this had genuinely been some horrible mix-up, I could find a way to fix it. I just needed to believe that it was fixable. While skimming through flights, I decided to call Aunt Victoria. She wasn't going on the trip this year because of her recent hip surgery. Aunt Vic, it's Olivia. Sorry to call out of the blue, but something weird happened. I explained everything, hoping she'd react with outrage, or at the very least confusion. But after a long pause, her voice came back soft and uncomfortable. Oh, sweetie. I'm sure it was just a mix-up with all the excitement. Did you try talking to your mom again? Or maybe Sophia? Then another pause. Emily called earlier to say they were on the road. Sounded like everyone was in high spirits. Did she say anything about me? A quiet beat. Not specifically, no. My chest tightened. Aunt Vic, is there something you're not telling me? She sighed. A long, weary kind of sigh that said more than her words ever could. Olivia, I really don't want to get involved in anything. It's probably just a misunderstanding. Maybe give your mother another call. When we hung up, I felt heavier. The kind of heavy that sits in your bones. I opened Instagram, thinking maybe there'd be a photo of the group loading the cars. Some hint that they were still thinking of me. Instead, I found Sophia's newest post. Selfies in the car, breakfast at a roadside diner, wide smiles, laughter, joy. All without me. I scrolled through the comments, each one another tiny cut. Emily. Best Christmas trip ever, off to a great start. Leo. Road trip vibes. And then Mom. So blessed to have almost everyone together. That word, almost, hit harder than anything else. She knew I wasn't there. It wasn't a mistake. I switched to Facebook, hoping maybe I was just spiraling. But the same kinds of posts greeted me there too. And then, I saw it. A few comments referencing updates from a group chat I had never been added to. Just like we planned. Operation Road Trip is a go. My stomach turned. I searched through my messages, combed through every thread related to the trip. But there was nothing. They'd created a separate group without me. Piece by piece, the truth was settling in. Not with a bang, but with a slow, cold certainty. And still, some part of me clung to hope. I didn't want to believe it. I wasn't ready to. Not yet. For the next 2 hours, I found myself caught in a cycle, refreshing flight options, dialing family members who didn't pick up, and trying unsuccessfully to choke back the ache rising in my throat. My mother never called back like she said she would. Then, out of nowhere, my phone pinged. A text from Sophia. I opened it, expecting a poor excuse or maybe an apology. Instead, it was a screenshot, a snippet from a conversation. Several messages were visible, but one was circled, bold as a slap. He's really not here, OMG, our plan worked. Mom kept asking if we should wait, but I told her he was probably still sleeping. Gotta admit I feel a little bad. but after last year's drama, we deserve a peaceful Christmas. Beneath the image, Sophia had typed, "Oops, wrong person, ignore that." I stared at the screen, unable to move, barely able to breathe. He's not here. He, not she. Like I wasn't even human. Just a nuisance they'd successfully gotten rid of. Our plan worked. There it was, laid bare. This hadn't been a mistake. It had been calculated, coordinated, chosen. My fingers moved on autopilot as I typed my reply. Merry Christmas. Then I set the phone down, and for the first time that morning, I let myself cry. The next 2 hours passed in stunned silence. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there. The screenshot burned into my mind. Those words playing on repeat. He's really not here. Our plan worked. Every time they echoed, they carved a little deeper. My family hadn't forgotten me. They had made a choice to leave me behind. Deliberately. My phone buzzed again and again with follow-ups from Sophia. Olivia, it's not what it looks like. Please call me so I can explain. Then, that message wasn't even about you. And finally, you're taking this the wrong way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I opened my laptop. Our family used a shared cloud account for photos, group documents, even synced texts and backups, thanks to a tech-happy uncle who insisted we stay connected. Sophia was the worst offender when it came to blindly hitting yes on every backup prompt. Within a few minutes, I was looking at the files from her phone. I hesitated, for just a moment. But curiosity gave way to something heavier, the need for the truth. What I found confirmed every sinking suspicion. Threads of conversations, messages between Sophia and other relatives. They didn't even try to hide it. They called it the Olivia situation. Plans to keep me out of the group chat. Strategies to make sure I didn't come on the trip. Jokes even. Casual, heartless jokes about how peaceful it would be without me. It wasn't just neglect. It was a choice. And worse, a shared one. From Sophia to Mom, dated 3 weeks ago. Do we really have to bring Olivia? She totally ruined Christmas last year with all her drama. My mother's reply stung more than it should have. She did book everything, and it's all on her credit card. Sophia responded with the kind of cold calculation that took my breath away. So let her book it. Then we figure out how to leave without her. Win-win. Another conversation showed up, this time between Sophia and Leo. Mom's getting nervous about leaving Olivia behind, Sophia wrote. Leo, ever the charmer when it suited him, responded with biting indifference. Just leave before she wakes up. She sleeps like the dead. By the time she notices, we'll be halfway to Montana. But the worst, the part that truly broke me, was the group thread. A vote. An actual vote. Whether I should be included in the trip. 3 votes for me to come, 12 against. 2 didn't respond. My own parents voted against me. At first, Mom had written, she is family, and she did organize everything. But then came her follow-up. I suppose you're right. It would be more relaxing without having to manage her feelings all the time. Manage my feelings, I whispered to the quiet room, the words catching in my throat, the so-called drama they clung to from last Christmas. That was the night I finally stood up for myself. Cousin Chris had made yet another dig about me being single, something he found endlessly amusing. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I simply asked him calmly to stop, told him it was hurtful. That was it. That was my crime. That was the disruption they couldn't forgive. And the deeper I dug, the more everything came flooding back. Not just this year, but years of being the family's quiet casualty. The time I gave up my bedroom so out-of-town relatives could stay, sleeping on the couch for a week, while Sophia flat out refused to share hers. This past summer, I worked 2 jobs to help cover expenses, while Dad was between positions, only for my parents to use that money to buy Leo a new car when he passed his driving test. Every achievement I earned was met with a passing, "That's nice," while my siblings were showered with praise for the smallest things. Last Christmas, I offered to help Mom in the kitchen. She snapped at me, said I was doing it wrong. Minutes later, Sophia did the exact same thing, and Mom called it perfect. During the gift exchange, Dad cut me off mid-sentence, because Leo had picked up a new gadget. Aunt Clara once forgot to include me in the family photo, and no one noticed. Not until I said something. I'd always assumed these moments were accidents. Clumsy oversights, nothing more. I told myself families are messy, imperfect, complicated. I excused it all over and over again. But now, seeing the messages, the planning, the votes, I realized it hadn't been thoughtlessness. It had been intentional. All of it. I wasn't just forgotten. I was excluded. Purposefully. And for the first time, I couldn't pretend otherwise. I thought back to all the sacrifices I'd made for them over the years. The money, the time, the emotional labor no one ever acknowledged. 3 years ago, when my parents were behind on their mortgage, I handed them $8,000 from my savings. Money I'd been quietly putting away for a down payment on my first home. They called it a loan. It was never repaid. When Leo needed a laptop for school, I bought it without hesitation. When Sophia's car broke down, I covered the repairs. Again, without being asked twice. And this trip, the $1,500 reservation, was sitting on my credit card. Just like every other year, I'd handled the booking. Just like every other year, they all swore they'd pay me back at Christmas. Sometimes they did, partially. Most of the time, it was vague promises and tight budget excuses that never led anywhere. I started calling around, trying to make sense of what had happened. My father's phone went straight to voicemail. Leo texted, "Can't talk right now, I'll call later." He never did. Aunt Clara read my message but didn't reply. Uncle George's phone just rang endlessly. Finally, after what felt like hours of silence, Cousin Emily answered. "Olivia, hey, what's going on?" I didn't waste time. "Emily, I need you to tell me the truth. Did they leave me behind on purpose this morning?" There was a long pause. The kind that says more than words ever could. "I don't know what you're talking about," she finally said. "Please don't do that. Not you. Don't lie." She let out a sigh. "It wasn't my idea, okay?" Sophia and Leo pushed for it. "They said you're always complaining and making things harder than they have to be. They convinced everyone it would be more fun without you." I felt the sting in my throat. "And you just went along with it?" "What was I supposed to do, Olivia? They took a vote. Majority ruled." "You could have stood up for me," I said quietly. "You could have warned me." She hesitated. "And be the next one left behind." "I'm sorry, Olivia. That's just how family dynamics work sometimes." I didn't say goodbye. I just ended the call. Because if this was how family worked, I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of it anymore. I went upstairs to my old bedroom, the one I'd grown up in, and quietly closed the door behind me. Then I crumbled. Years of being pushed aside, ignored, and treated like I didn't matter came crashing down all at once. I curled up on the bed like I had when I was a child, sobbing until my throat felt torn and my eyes stung from the tears. As the December light outside dimmed into early evening, I found myself spinning through a loop of emotions: shock, disbelief, even bargaining. Maybe if I apologized for whatever offense they thought I'd committed, they'd let me come. Maybe if I offered to stay in a separate cabin and keep to myself, they'd invite me. Maybe if I worked harder to be the person they wanted me to be, they'd finally love me the way I'd always hoped they would. But as darkness settled in, that desperate hope began to shift, giving way to something sharper. Anger, not just frustration, but a white-hot, quiet kind of fury. The kind that cuts through years of self-doubt like a blade. After hours of crying, I was no longer overwhelmed. I felt hollowed out, but focused. So I picked up the phone and called Emily again. "This time, I want the full truth," I said as soon as she picked up. "No editing, no sugarcoating. What exactly did they say about me?" There was a pause, followed by a resigned sigh. "They said you're too sensitive, that you always make everything about you, that you're controlling about trip details, and it wears everyone out. Sophia said the holidays are more peaceful without you hovering, questioning everything, and then getting upset." I swallowed hard. "What about my parents? What did they say?" "Your mom tried to stick up for you at first," she admitted. "But Sophia kept bringing up last Christmas. She kept calling it the incident. Eventually, your mom gave in. Said it might just be easier this year without the added emotional stress. Your dad didn't really say much. He just followed her lead." I braced myself. "So what exactly was the plan?" "To leave before you woke up. If you called, we were supposed to act like it was a miscommunication. Say we thought you were riding in another car. By the time you realized, the hope was that we'd be too far for you to catch up." The honesty hit me like a slap. But I stayed calm. Too much had already been broken for tears. "Thank you for telling me the truth," I said quietly. "Olivia, I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner." "Yes," I replied evenly. "You should have." Then I hung up. I sat at the edge of my bed, allowing the full weight of it all to settle in. Not just today's betrayal, but years of it. Years of showing up, of carrying responsibilities no one else wanted, of giving without limits and receiving so little in return. I had convinced myself it was just the way families are, that things were complicated, that love sometimes hides behind silence or forgetfulness. But this wasn't love, it was exploitation. Emotional neglect dressed up as tradition, a quiet vote that I was worth less, that my feelings were optional, that I could be cut out the moment I became inconvenient. "Enough," I whispered to the empty room. And I meant it. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. I logged into the resort's website and pulled up the reservation, my reservation. There it was, plain as day, 6 luxury cabins arranged around a private lodge, bundled with winter activities, Christmas dinner, and every special touch the resort offered. The full premium holiday package. $1,500 on my credit card. I'd spent the year budgeting for this, carefully planning every detail, trusting the family would reimburse their shares, just like they always promised to during the Christmas Eve gift exchange. But another look through Sophia's message backups shattered that illusion too. One text from Leo read, "Even if she finds out, Olivia won't cancel. She's too proud. She'll probably just fly out and act like everything's fine. Free Christmas vacation for the rest of us." Sophia's response? A laughing emoji. I stared at the screen, letting the words sit in silence. The smug certainty, the assumption that I'd stay quiet, stay loyal, stay small, that I'd swallow the hurt like always and come running, just so no one else had to feel uncomfortable. I picked up my phone and replied to Sophia's earlier stream of frantic messages with just 2 words. "Merry Christmas." Let them believe I'd accepted it. Let them think I was still dependable, passive Olivia, the one who never made waves. Let them believe whatever they needed to, for now. I sat down at my desk and began making a list. Not a dramatic one, just facts. A running record of every time I'd covered someone's expenses, every loan I'd extended and never seen returned. Every birthday, graduation, or holiday where I'd put in the effort and been quietly overlooked. Every time I'd stepped up, only to be dismissed or taken for granted. The list stretched across 3 full pages, single-spaced. Then I started a second list, shorter but far more important. Things I wanted, needed, respect, appreciation, reciprocity, honesty. The basic dignity of being treated like a full, equal member of the family. Not an afterthought, not the helper in the background. Then I called my therapist, Dr. Anya Sharma, someone I'd been working with for a year now, mostly on what she called my people-pleasing patterns and boundary erosion. Even though it was Christmas Eve and technically after hours, she answered, "Olivia, are you all right? What's going on?" I told her everything. What had happened, what I'd discovered, what I was feeling. My voice was steadier than I expected. When I finished, there was a pause. Then she spoke with that quiet firmness I'd come to trust. "What you're describing is a profound betrayal, and your reaction is not only valid, it's emotionally healthy. That anger you're feeling? That's appropriate. The real question is, what do you want to do with it? I want to stop being the one they step on. I want them to face consequences. I want them to finally understand they can't treat me like I'm disposable anymore." "All perfectly valid," she said. "What actions are you considering?" I explained my plan, the 2-part response I had in mind. She listened patiently, didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she asked me just one question. "Will this move you toward healing, or pull you deeper into pain?" I was honest. "Maybe both. It'll hurt at first, but I think it'll also free me, because for once, I won't be shrinking back or staying quiet." "Then I support you," she said. "Just remember, you're doing this for your own peace, not for revenge. The goal here isn't punishment, it's self-respect." When we hung up, I felt lighter, grounded, seen. My anger wasn't out of proportion. My pain wasn't imagined. My plan wasn't irrational. It was simply the next step in reclaiming myself. I reopened the resort's website and clicked on Contact Us. Then I picked up my phone and began to dial. Timberline Peaks Resort, this is Melanie. How may I assist you today? Hi, Melanie. My name is Olivia Hayes. I have a reservation starting tomorrow. 6 cabins under the premium Christmas package. Yes, Miss Hayes. I see your booking here. Arrival December 25th, 17th guests. All-inclusive holiday package. How can I help? I'd like to cancel the entire reservation. There was a slight pause. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. May I ask the reason for the cancellation? In some cases, we can modify the booking instead of canceling. I hesitated just for a moment. The reservation was for a family gathering, but plans have changed. The family decided to go without me. I paid for everything up front, but they excluded me from the trip. There was a longer silence. Then Melanie's voice returned, softer, touched with sincere sympathy. I'm very sorry to hear that, Miss Hayes. Please give me a moment to check the cancellation policy for your package. I heard her typing. Then a brief pause as hold music came on. When she returned, her tone was even warmer. My manager has reviewed your case, and given the situation, we're going to issue a full refund to your credit card. It should appear within 3 to 5 business days. Thank you, I said, exhaling. Relief poured through me like a quiet flood. That money meant a lot, not just financially, but symbolically. It was something I could take back. There's just one more thing, Melanie added gently. Your reservation shows your family is still expected to arrive tomorrow. Would you like us to notify them that the reservation's been canceled, or would you prefer to inform them yourself? I thought about it, and the answer came clearly. If you don't mind, I'd prefer they find out when they arrive. Another small pause. I understand. We'll handle it with discretion. Thank you, Melanie. You've been incredibly kind. You're very welcome, Miss Hayes. And if I may say so, I truly hope you find peace this holiday season, despite everything. When I hung up, it felt like a weight had finally slid off my shoulders. I had taken the first step, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. Step 1, complete. Now, on to step 2. I set my alarm for 6:30 the next morning, then began gathering everything I'd need. Property documents, financial records, spare keys, my passport, and a few personal keepsakes I couldn't bear to leave behind. While moving methodically through the house, I made another decision. I booked a solo vacation to Santorini, Greece. It was a place I'd always dreamed of visiting, but had repeatedly set aside in favor of family duties and their ever-growing needs. Now, finally, I was choosing me. And oddly enough, the cost of the trip was just about what I had been prepared to sacrifice for the family's Christmas getaway. The irony wasn't lost on me. That night, I wrote a letter to my family, clear, factual, direct. No dramatics, no guilt. Just the truth about why I was stepping away. I scheduled it to be sent automatically once my flight took off. Then I made 2 final calls. One to a locksmith who charged extra for Christmas Day but didn't hesitate to accept the job, and another to a moving company known for their anytime, anywhere service. Both confirmed availability, even on the holiday. It wasn't cheap, but I considered it money well spent. By the time I finally crawled into bed in the early hours of Christmas morning, I didn't feel angry. I felt calm. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. My alarm rang right at 6:30. I woke without hesitation. No grogginess, no sorrow, just quiet resolve. I showered, dressed comfortably, ate a quick breakfast, and got to work. The locksmith, a kind older gentleman named Frank, arrived by 7:30 sharp. He asked no more than was needed. I told him I needed every lock replaced. Front door, back door, side entrance, garage. He gave a simple nod and got to work. Family trouble? He asked midway through, voice casual, not prying. You could say that, I replied. He gave another nod, this one paired with a knowing smile. Holidays tend to bring out the best and worst in people. I've been married 42 years, and I swear every now and then I still want to change the locks on my in-laws. He chuckled and winked. For the first time in days, I smiled, genuinely. By 9, Frank was finished. He handed me a set of gleaming new keys and wished me a Merry Christmas. I thanked him with sincerity and tucked a generous tip into his hand without a second thought. It was, in every sense, Worth it. The moving truck pulled into the driveway, right on schedule at 9:30. Two young men stepped out, Derek and Justin, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else on Christmas morning. But to their credit, they kept things professional and polite. I showed them what I needed moved, specific items from the house into the garage, my parents' clothing, personal belongings, some furniture pieces, Leo's gaming setup, and Sophia's collection of designer clothes and beauty products. When Justin gave me a curious look, I offered a simple explanation. We're starting renovations while the family's away. I want to surprise them with some progress when they get back. They didn't ask any more questions and worked efficiently. By 11, the garage was neatly organized. Boxes labeled, furniture covered, and everything stacked with care. I placed a large envelope on top of the center box. Inside were my letter to the family and a full set of new house keys. I locked the garage using its separate key, then tucked it into a hiding spot the family all knew, a familiar, intentional detail. Inside the house, I turned my attention to security. Earlier that week, I'd rush-ordered a small set of home security cameras. I installed one at the front door, one at the back, and one in the main living area, all synced to an app on my phone. Quiet protection, quiet boundaries, quiet peace. Next came the digital and financial cleanup. I logged into our shared family bank account and transferred my portion into my personal account. Then I carefully removed my credit card from all the subscription services they'd been charging to me for years. Finally, I updated passwords on the accounts that technically belonged to me, but had long been treated like community property. By early afternoon, my suitcase was zipped and ready for Santorini. The house was locked, the garage sealed, and everything was set for their return, though not in the way they expected. I took one last walk through the house, the same house I'd lived in for most of my adult life. Not because I had to, but because I felt responsible, because I had believed for too long that staying was a form of love. 5 years ago, my grandmother had left the house to me in her will, a surprise to everyone, including myself. She'd always had a quiet fondness for me. Maybe she saw something familiar, another person who had spent a lifetime observing instead of belonging. After she passed, I let my parents stay, never asked for rent, took over the mortgage without complaint. Another truth that had been conveniently forgotten whenever the topic of family contributions came up. As I stood in the entryway, house keys in hand, my phone began to buzz. One call, then another, text after text flooded in. They had arrived at the resort and realized the reservation was gone, right on schedule. I didn't rush to answer. I calmly locked the front door, loaded my suitcase into the trunk, and settled into the driver's seat before scrolling through the chaos. Mom. Olivia? Something's wrong with the booking. Please call me right away. Dad. Your mother's upset. Fix whatever you did to the reservation. Sophia. What is going on? The resort says everything's been canceled. Call me. Leo. WTF, Olivia? Everything's full. There's literally nowhere to stay. Aunt Diane. We're all standing here with our luggage and no place to go. Someone needs to fix this. Message after message. Frantic, angry, accusatory. And not a single one acknowledging what they had done. Just assumption after assumption that I'd fix it. That I'd absorb the chaos like always. I scrolled to the newly created family group chat. The one they'd added me to only now, out of necessity. Then I typed one message. I know you plan to leave without me. I know you had no intention of reimbursing me. I canceled the reservation and received a full refund. Enjoy your Christmas. The backlash came instantly. Calls rang through, one after the next. I declined them all. Messages rolled in so fast I couldn't keep up. Mom. Olivia, please, this isn't what you think. You're overreacting. Dad. This behavior is completely unacceptable. Sophia. You ruined Christmas for everyone over a stupid misunderstanding, seriously? Aunt Diane. We're stranded in Montana. How could you be so selfish? I didn't respond. I watched the notifications pile up calmly, as if from a distance. Let them stew in their confusion. Let them feel, for once, the helplessness they so casually left me with. After 20 minutes, the tone began to shift. Mom. Olivia, please? If you felt excluded, we're sorry. Let's talk. Dad. Your mother's in tears. Just tell us what you want us to do. Sophia. Okay, fine. We shouldn't have left you. But this is extreme. Where do you expect us to go now? I typed one last message. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You've always been great at making plans without me. Then I silenced my phone. I started the engine. And as I pulled out of the driveway and made my way toward the airport, I felt a quiet lightness settle over me. The kind that comes not from escape, but from finally choosing yourself. The fallout unfolded mostly while I was in Santorini, where I spent a peaceful, soul-restoring week. It was the first time in years I truly focused on myself. What I needed, what I valued, and what I wanted my life to look like moving forward. I kept my phone on Do Not Disturb, checking it once daily, just enough to scan for real emergencies and review the security camera footage back at the house. What I saw through those cameras, and what I read in the flood of messages, told a story of complete disarray. Cousin Emily, who had begun sending me private messages that felt genuinely apologetic, filled in the details. The scene at the resort, she said, had been nothing short of a disaster. With no booking and no alternative accommodations during the peak of the Christmas season, the family was scattered. Some drove hours to find overpriced hotel rooms in the nearest city. Others squeezed into a single small cabin Uncle George had managed to wrangle through a last-minute business contact. Their elegant Christmas dinner was replaced by greasy takeout pizza eaten elbow to elbow in a cramped space. By then, I'd been added to the full family group chat, which had erupted into a storm of finger-pointing and shifting blame. Sophia and Leo initially clung to their excuse that I had misinterpreted everything, but as frustration mounted and the financial reality of their mistake set in, the truth came out. Fine, Sophia finally admitted. We planned to leave her, but she's always so controlling about these trips, always making it about her feelings. We just wanted one Christmas where we didn't have to walk on eggshells. To my surprise, my mother spoke up, not in denial, but in defense. She paid for the whole trip, Sophia. She's been footing the bill for years, and we've barely reimbursed her. What did you expect her to do when she realized what happened? Pretend it didn't matter? Sophia's reply was muted, but telling. I think we ruined it first. Leo, in a rare moment of honesty, added quietly, Yeah, we ruined it for her a long time ago. Over the next several days, they tried calling me hundreds of times. I didn't answer. I watched the tone of their messages shift, from rage to regret to negotiation. But I remained silent. They ended their holiday early, cutting their trip short after just 2 days of shared discomfort and fractured cheer. And I watched it all unfold from the quiet beauty of a Santorini sunrise, lighter, clearer, and more certain than I'd ever felt before. On December 27th, my security cameras captured their return, suitcases in hand, frustration etched on every face, only to realize they could no longer get into the house. I watched from afar as my father jiggled his key repeatedly, baffled. My mother pressed her face to the window, trying to see inside. Sophia paced the front lawn, visibly agitated, phone to her ear as she barked orders into the void. Eventually, someone thought to check the garage. That's where they found it. The envelope with the new keys and my letter. I watched them gather around and read it in silence, their expressions shifting from confusion to something more raw as they absorbed every word. I had laid it out plainly. This house belonged to me, gifted by my grandmother. I had let them live here rent-free, while I quietly paid the mortgage. That chapter was over. They were welcome to stay temporarily, but beginning February 1st, rent would be due. At full market rate. When I returned from Santorini on January 3rd, I came home not just rested, but clear-headed and resolved. Their cars were already in the driveway. They knew I'd be back today. The conversation about rent and the future was unavoidable. I walked through the front door and found them waiting in the living room. A familiar cast of faces, but with unfamiliar expressions. Not defiance this time, but unease, even fear. A shift I never thought I'd see. Olivia, my mother said, rising slowly from the couch, we need to talk about what you've done. No, I said evenly, remaining at the threshold. We need to talk about what you've done, not just this Christmas, but for years. Sophia jumped in. So we left you behind. Yes, it was wrong. Immature, sure, but changing the locks, charging rent, threatening to evict your own family? Who does that? Someone who's finally reached her limit, I replied. Someone who's tired of being treated like an unpaid assistant instead of a person. Someone who's drawing boundaries that should have existed years ago. Exploited? Really? My father scoffed. That's a bit theatrical, don't you think? Without another word, I took out my phone and played the recording, a compilation I had assembled before my departure. Message after message rolled through the room, their own voices casually cold, dissecting me as a problem, a hurdle, a wallet, not once referring to me as a sister, daughter, or loved one, only as something to manage. When it ended, no one spoke. It was Alex, Sophia's fiancé, who broke the silence. "I've been listening to this for days," he said. "And honestly, I'm shocked. If this is how you treat someone in your family, I'm not sure I want to be part of it." Sophia turned on him, stunned. "You're taking her side?" "There shouldn't even be sides," he replied calmly. "But if there are, then yes, I'm standing with the person you all wronged." Leo shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. Then he looked at me. "He's right. It wasn't just the trip. It was all of it. We messed up, Olivia. Badly. And I'm sorry. Really sorry." For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel dismissed. I felt heard. One by one, they began to acknowledge what had happened. Some with humility, others with resistance still clinging to their tone. My mother cried. My father looked quietly ashamed. Sophia oscillated between defensive justifications and moments of genuine remorse. The conversation stretched for hours, digging up old wounds and long-standing family patterns. I remained composed, clear and steady. No yelling, no theatrics, just boundaries. I laid out the new terms: rent payments for those who chose to stay in the house, structured repayment plans for unpaid loans, and a non-negotiable expectation of mutual respect going forward. "And if we don't agree to this," my father asked, the edge of his old authority creeping back in. "Then you'll need to find other living arrangements by February 1st, I answered evenly. "This isn't up for discussion." In the days that followed, the family began to fracture and reconfigure in ways I hadn't expected. My parents, confronted with the financial reality of paying market-rate rent along with what they owed me, finally followed through on their long-discussed idea of downsizing. They found a modest condo closer to my father's office and were moved out by mid-January. Surprisingly, my mother began calling once a week, not to vent or guilt trip, but to genuinely ask about my life. My father sent short, slightly awkward text messages that nevertheless felt sincere. Small gestures, but sincere ones. Sophia and Alex had a series of difficult conversations that eventually led them to postpone their wedding. The events of Christmas had exposed cracks Alex couldn't ignore. Her behavior, calculated and unkind, had raised red flags he could no longer dismiss. Sophia moved in with a friend, and though our relationship stayed strained, we found a kind of civil truce. Then, 3 months later, she reached out and asked to meet for dinner. Over a quiet meal at a neutral restaurant, she opened up. "I was jealous of you," she admitted. "You've always been the one who holds everything together. I felt like I had to compete with that, to prove I could be better. It was easier to push you away than admit I admired you." I wasn't sure I fully believed her, not yet. But I appreciated the honesty, or at least the attempt. "We've got years of damage to unpack," I told her. "This won't be quick." "I know," she said softly, "but I'd like to try it if you're open to it." Leo surprised me most. He asked to stay in the house, agreeing without complaint to pay the full rent. "I want to do this right," he told me. "And I want to actually know my sister, not just the version I've heard about from everyone else." So we became roommates, cautiously, at first. Over time, something real grew between us. Not just tolerance, but trust. A sibling bond we'd never truly had before. In the weeks that followed, extended family members reached out one by one. Some apologized sincerely, owning their part in a dynamic that had long excluded and minimized me. Others stayed distant, uncomfortable with the shift in roles and power. Aunt Clara never spoke to me again. Uncle George, to my surprise, mailed a handwritten apology and a check, estimating what he felt he'd cost me over the years. Cousin Emily and I started meeting for coffee regularly. For the first time, our relationship began to feel balanced, not centered on obligation, but on mutual respect. And for the first time in a very long time, I no longer felt like an outsider in my own life. Family therapy became part of the path forward. Not everyone showed up consistently, but those who did began to truly examine the unhealthy patterns we'd all been stuck in for years. Through every session, I held my boundaries. Firm, but fair. No more casual loans without repayment terms. No more absorbing family costs without acknowledgement. No more biting my tongue to keep the peace. It wasn't always smooth. There were stumbles, tense moments, and old habits trying to creep back in. But I stayed committed. Little by little, something new began to take shape. Not a perfect family, but a more honest one. A relationship built on mutual respect, not silent expectation. 6 months after the Christmas incident, I sat in Dr. Anya Sharma's office for one of our final regular sessions. We'd spent months working through the emotional scars of family trauma, slowly helping me build a stronger foundation of self-worth and clarity in my relationships. "How do you feel about the progress you've made?" she asked gently. I thought for a moment, then answered, "Lighter, like I've set down a weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. I still have moments of guilt and doubt, but they don't control me anymore. I can spot them when they show up and step away before they pull me under." It hadn't been easy. There had been deep grief in the aftermath. Grief for the family I had always hoped for, but never truly had. Some days I questioned everything. Was I being too harsh? Had I overreacted? Was I hurting the very people I still cared about? But therapy helped me recognize those thoughts for what they were. Echoes of years spent trying to earn love by disappearing myself. With Dr. Sharma's guidance, I learned how to acknowledge those emotions without letting them drive my decisions. "And your support system?" she asked next. "Stronger every day," I said with a smile. My friends have shown up in ways I never let them before. Once I stopped making excuses for my family and started telling the truth, everything shifted. I'd reconnected with old friends from college, rebuilt ties I'd let fall away, and even made new ones, especially through the photography class I'd started. I found myself part of a weekly book club, a photography group that did monthly outings, and a circle of friends who texted just to check in, not because they needed anything. For so long, I had poured everything into family, thinking that was loyalty. Now I understood that real loyalty doesn't require you to lose yourself. "And the house?" she asked with a knowing look. I laughed. "Still mine, and now it finally feels like it." A year ago, I wouldn't have said that with confidence. But things had changed. Leo was still renting one of the rooms, and I'd brought in a graduate student to rent another. The rental income now covered the mortgage. I was saving for a kitchen renovation in the fall, something I'd dreamed of but never prioritized. I had reclaimed that space, not just the deed, but the feeling. I'd repainted the walls, chosen furniture and art that reflected me for the first time, not what my family had always wanted. What once felt like a place of quiet duty now felt like a home, my home. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was surviving in it. I felt like I was living. My solo travels had continued, quietly becoming one of the most enriching parts of my new life. After Santorini, I started taking weekend trips to places I'd always been curious about, but had consistently placed on the back burner. I explored Seattle for its striking architecture, wandered through Nashville's vibrant music scene, and indulged in Savannah's celebrated food culture. These small adventures did more than satisfy wanderlust. They built my confidence, widened my world, and reminded me how much life there was beyond the family orbit I'd spent so long revolving around. "And where are you now with reconciliation?" Dr. Sharma asked during one of our final sessions. "How do you feel about that word?" I nodded, having anticipated the question. "It's something I've been sitting with for months. I'm open to it, but only on my terms. With some, there's been genuine progress. Leo and I have a stronger relationship now than we ever managed in childhood. My parents are trying in their own way. Sophia, well, that one's still complicated. And as for Aunt Clara, I've accepted we may never reconcile, and that's okay." Dr. Sharma gave a thoughtful nod. "That sounds like a balanced view. Reconciliation doesn't mean going backward. It's about forming new, healthier relationships when possible, and being at peace when it's not." As summer faded into fall, I decided to take a step forward. I planned a small dinner gathering at my home. Nothing elaborate, just a quiet evening with people who had shown sincere effort to rebuild trust. I invited my parents, Leo, cousin Emily, and her husband Mark, Uncle George, and after some internal debate, Sophia. Not everyone made the list. Only those who had owned their part in the past and were working in real ways to do better. In the invitation, I set expectations clearly. This wasn't a rehash of old wounds. It was a chance for a fresh start. Conversation at the table would focus on the present and future. Anyone uncomfortable with that boundary was welcome to decline. To my cautious surprise, everyone accepted, and for the first time, I looked forward to welcoming them, not as someone desperate to keep the peace, but as someone standing firmly in her own home, on her own terms. The dinner wasn't flawless. There were inevitable moments of tension, subtle reminders of the past that surfaced before being gently redirected. But there were also real conversations, small acts of kindness, and glimmers of connection that felt different, hopeful even. My mother brought something unexpected, a photo album I'd never seen before, filled with snapshots from my childhood. As we flipped through it together, she said softly, "I realized we don't celebrate you enough. I want to change that." Her words, simple as they were, felt deeply sincere. My father stood beside me at the grill in the backyard, asking questions about my work, not out of obligation, but with genuine curiosity. Leo proudly showed off the kitchen shelves he'd recently installed, his way of investing in the space we now shared. And Sophia handed me a gift wrapped in quiet intention. A framed photograph of us as kids, arms slung around each other, grinning with the easy closeness of children untouched by rivalry. "I found this while I was packing," she said. "I forgot that we used to be friends." After dinner, as we sat together in the living room with dessert and coffee, my father raised his mug and cleared his throat. "To Olivia," he said, "for having the strength to demand better from us, and for giving us the chance to rise to it. We didn't earn a second chance, but we're grateful for it." The words caught me off guard. They brought tears, not from pain, but from the quiet relief of finally being seen. That year, Christmas looked nothing like it had in the past. It was smaller, quieter, held at a neutral venue rather than the family home. Everyone shared in the responsibilities and costs. There were no silent exclusions, no hidden agendas, no one caring more than their share. The gifts were thoughtful, meaningful, not showy. We exchanged real stories, laughter, and even some tears. We honored how far we'd come and acknowledged the healing still ahead. Not everyone was there, and that was okay. Some wounds were still too fresh. Aunt Clara declined the invitation, but sent a card. A few cousins celebrated elsewhere, but those who did come showed up with open hearts, committed to building something healthier than what we had known before. Driving home that night, I thought about the distance between this Christmas and the last. How far I'd traveled, not just physically, but emotionally. I had moved from betrayal and heartbreak to clarity and quiet strength. I was no longer the family's fixer, the overlooked middle child. I was a woman with boundaries, with self-respect, with the courage to expect and require better. The most profound lesson I had learned wasn't just about family or even about speaking up. It was about understanding the difference between love that limits and love that lifts, between relationships that deplete you and those that restore you, between grasping for crumbs of affection and choosing instead to wait for respect. Sometimes love requires distance. Sometimes healing means walking away. And sometimes the family you need isn't the one you were born into. It's the one you build, moment by moment, person by person, in the light of your own hard-earned truth. I don't regret what I did that Christmas morning, canceling the reservation, changing the locks, choosing myself. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, and the most necessary. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally recognizing my own worth, about refusing to accept love that only showed up in words, but never in actions. Some might say it was too much. I see it as the first step into a new kind of life, a life where I matter, where my feelings are not optional, where respect is the baseline, not a favor. If you're watching this and something in my story feels familiar, please know you're not alone. Family relationships are complicated, but they should never cost you your dignity, your peace, or your sense of self. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival, and sometimes the bravest, most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from what wounds you, even when it wears the face of family. Have you ever had to draw a hard line with someone close to you? What was the moment that finally pushed you to act? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. If this message resonated, please consider subscribing for more honest conversations about healing, family dynamics, and finding your voice. Your support helps others find these stories and realize they're not alone either. Thank you for being here, and remember, you deserve respect. You deserve to be heard. You deserve a life where you are fully seen.